So, with everything that happened in Syria over the weekend, I'm going to talk about something that, well, maybe it goes a bit beyond just grinding my gears. It's something I think is incredibly important, but it isn't really talked about enough. And that is the absolute necessity of having a genuinely Marxist worldview. Marxism helps us understand how things are interconnected, how we get from A to B, and how A determines what B looks like and becomes a new thing going forward. Without that, we're easily able to be led into isolating events, looking at them on their own and not in connection with the mutually determining other events that they relate to. We see only A or only B. Or if we want to get a little jargony about it, we think A equals A. But it doesn't, right? A can't equal A because A is already becoming B, which is, premised by A, and you don't care about any of that. Look, guys, everything in the world functions dialectically. And if we want to understand the world, we need to learn to think dialectically. We can't just say, I like the proletariat or spout off some words Marx or Lenin wrote and call ourselves Marxist Leninists, right? We need to genuinely understand how development happens. And frankly, I think a little bit of that Marxist Leninist analysis of development would have really helped in Syria over the weekend and could have helped create the social consciousness necessary to stave off nonstop attacks from the American ruling class. But that's not really my point. My point is this. All those attacks, all modern warfare really is multifaceted. And one of the strongest forms of warfare in our ruling class's arsenal is information warfare. And information warfare is all about framing, creating narratives and categories within our minds to twist the way we think about actual events happening in the world, to mislead us as to what reality is. That's why the media uses terms like rebels or even moderate rebels instead of Al-Qaeda members or terrorists for the forces they want us to sympathize with, right? Just changing the word they use to describe al-Jilani changes how he's viewed. This tragedy that happened in Syria over the weekend that opened the southern border to Zionists and Damascus to Al-Qaeda, it didn't begin on December 6th of this year. It began years ago. This fight has been ongoing since even before Assad's forces heroically took back places like Damascus, right? It hasn't stopped. And that entire time, information warfare has been the primary mode of warfare waged against the Syrian people. Why did Syria fall so easily and so quickly? Where was the Assad of 2015 or 2020? He wasn't speaking to the people. He wasn't meeting with key allies. He was absent. Now, I'm not usually one to speculate, but a fight can take it out of someone. Even someone as strong as Assad was back then can have enough of it. It happens. Now, think about this. Why have China, Russia, Free Korea, and Cuba stood tall against decades upon decades of information warfare? Because they've secured their people, the people of their countries against it. China has the Great Firewall, for instance, right? They have their own internet, their own social media, etc. Put simply, Syria was just not in a position to construct these things. That's what sanctions are for, right? Another interconnected piece here. The ruling class tells us that sanctions are to punish bad guys without having to kill anyone, right? This is a ridiculous lie. Sanctions cut people off from necessary trade that can build up their economy and maintain a stable, peaceful, and prosperous life for the people of that country. They're used in this multifaceted warfare precisely because they harm people. The entire goal is to choke a country's economy, deny it necessary technology, food, medicine, and whatever else, and get people angry. This is connected to information warfare, and the two inform each other, right? The specific types of sanctions are combined with the specific types of complaints that NGOs use in targeting people with propaganda, right? When you don't have enough food, you blame the government for not giving you enough food, even though you're under an economic blockade. That's the key. And by the way, most of the NGOs being used in Syria and all around the world are usually subsidiaries, I'm sorry, for things like the National Endowment for Democracy. So basically the State Department. But anyway, why did Syria fall so quickly? Right? It was a weekend. Years and years of enduring these attacks is why. It wasn't actually quickly at all. It was the product of years and years and years and years of, frankly, pure evil being just repelling it over and over and over again. And while we're on the subject of connections, I want to point everyone to a paper by the Rand Corporation from 5 years ago called Extending Russia, Competing from Advantageous Ground. And by the way, thank you to David for sending me a video earlier that reminded me of this. In this paper, from the Rand Corporation, and by the way, if you don't know who they are, look it up later. Straight up neocon scum, and one of the more powerful institutions engaged in this part of warfare. Right? They spell out exactly what their goals are in this paper, though, and why. It's basically their plan to maintain world dominance through destroying Russia, which is the only thing imperialism can do, especially at this late decaying stage it's at now. It cannot coexist. It must destroy everything that tries to build itself up, because it builds itself up through destroying other people, through destroying our people. You guys don't need to read the entire paper. By the way, it's long, but I want you to just check out the table of contents with me real quick, right? I don't know if you have a link pulled up. I'm not going to bother pulling it up on screen because it's short, but if you do, look at chapter 4, which is where we're at now in their plan, right? Measure 1, just in the table of contents. Measure 1 is to provide lethal aid to Ukraine. Check, right? Measure 2, increase support to the Syrian rebels, aka Al-Qaeda terrorists. Measure 3, promote regime change in Belarus. Measure 4, exploit tensions in the South Caucasus. What's going on in Georgia, right? And that's about where we're at in the plan right now. All of this stuff in the world that's going on today is connected, and each part influences what the other parts look like as time goes on. And what's at the center of all of it? All of it. What's at the center? What's the basic point of necessity driving this destruction forward? It's safeguarding profits for international financial cartels and the increasingly volatile and abstract monetary scams of the ruling elites. And this, brothers and sisters, is why our fight here in the USA is so vital, and why it is anti-communist and frankly anti-humanity for these liberals to run around cheering the fall of the dictator, as if Assad being forced to flee to Russia is somehow not connected to the entire rest of the world, and the increasing despair and violence of a ruling class as it becomes more and more impossible to maintain its rule. So to all of these liberals from the ultra lefts who think the USA is a labor aristocracy and can't see through it to the class struggle, to the DSA types who don't understand the interconnection of what we can very safely call a third world war that is already happening, to the trots shouting a new version of neither Moscow nor Washington, I want to say this. If you care in any way, any small way about the class struggle, even a little, you need to stop reacting to the manufactured narratives and language used by the ruling class to lead you in a certain direction and start thinking. We are here and we are fighting. And that fighting is only going to get more and more intense as time goes on. Frankly, we need your help. Now is the time to step up, not the time to act like a child on the internet or turn yourself into an anti-communist based on abstractions and vague morality that doesn't exist in the real world. The enemies of humanity aren't all in neat little boxes cut off from the rest of the world and each other. They're on Wall Street, in K Street, in the city of London and Brussels. They exist. They are people. The same people impoverishing the American people are funding and organizing terrorists in Syria, trying to destroy entire nations and anything else that will get in their way. And we are the only ones who can stop them. If you think Xi Jinping is going to launch a ground invasion and liberate California, I got some bad news for you, brother. Ain't going to happen. The Russians aren't going to win this for us. The Syrians won't, the Cubans won't, the Chinese won't. Lenin once said that the only way of smashing the resistance of rotten and decaying exploiting classes is to find in the very society which surrounds us the forces which can, and owing to their social position, must constitute the power capable of sweeping away the old and creating the new, and to enlighten and organize those forces for the struggle. It really is all on us. I wish it wasn't, and I don't want to fight. I mean, I have a family to think about, but I will die before I turn away from my duty to humanity.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: "You look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard."
What's up, everybody? I'm Noah. This is Noah's show, and that guy down there is Daniel Gutierrez, a very good friend of mine, and possibly the hardest working man in I wouldn't say show business. It's some kind of business, though. I mean, some people make money from this, right? It's not us, but people have to at some point. You're muted, Daniel. See, we're amateurs.
Yeah, the commie streaming business, which means like zero money.
What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a really wild week in world historical events, in world historical terms.
No kidding. I mean, I kind of touched on what's going down in Syria already, but one of the other big news stories going around right now is they caught Luigi. What's his last name? Mangione.
Yeah, Mangione.
Mangione. They caught him. The guy that randomly killed the CEO of what was it? United Healthcare. One day they caught him, and they caught him at a McDonald's. And apparently he had a 3-page manifesto on him, and he was like very into like Ted Kaczynski and very weird times. And here's the thing that really grinded my gears about it. This guy, the guy that got killed, right? He's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans at least, just through United Healthcare. And the people that try to act like they're all populist and care about the working man, the Trump team, we're talking like Trump Jr. literally was talking about like hunting him down, and the guy that killed. It's so wild to me that Trump was so good at having his finger on the pulse of the nation years ago, but now his own people are getting mad at him for defending this scumbag CEO who actually got murdered. It's a crazy time. What do you think about it, Daniel?
I mean, like in terms of like just the sheer kind of like mind. Well, I'll use a word I can't use of someone of this person's class background, sort of deciding, in spite of all of their privileges and their sort of their wealth, to do something like this is already like a testament to anarchism and its petty bourgeois and its bourgeois class nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me interrupt you real quick, because a lot of people might not know. This guy Luigi, he wasn't like a working class guy. He wasn't a poor guy. He wasn't part of the proletariat. He was middle class, like comfortably upper middle class, right? This guy he had a master's degree, and he'd been going to prep schools, the kind of guy that waxes his eyebrows, right? Like, that's who we're talking about here. And it's interesting because back in the day, when the anarchists were actually trying to convince people that this propaganda of the deed, which is what he did really amounts to, was worthwhile, they were all poor people. They were working class people and peasants, mostly peasants. The leadership was among the middle or upper peasantry, but most of them were peasants or other proletarians. And so it strikes me as crazy that this guy who has no basic necessity for things to change the way most of us do, sees that things must change, and due to all these ideological confusions he had to have, I mean, posting Ted Kaczynski stuff, etc., this is what he comes up with. He wants to strike a blow against these cartels, but this is what he does. And it's a failure, like you say, of anarchism.
Yeah, and also the society of the spectacle, just this level of, this type of adventurism, which that people are, I guess, going to start, doing stuff like this is pretty shocking. I guess as someone who's been like a Marxist and a communist for long enough, like you dispel all of these types of notions, and to me they're so foreign and they're so alien at this point in my life as somebody who actually engages in studying this material, Marxism, Leninism. Yeah, it's pretty shocking, and I wouldn't be surprised if more things like this start happen as things continue to decay. But yeah, it's pretty disturbing. I guess his smile too was like pretty hard to miss. I imagine that somebody at the country club would have spotted him eventually.
Yeah, dude straight up had the Guy Fawkes smile, right? Like the anonymous masks. It's interesting to me because what it does is it makes me feel some kind of responsibility, right? This guy, if the conditions had been sort of conditioned in a way, conditioned. You guys know what I mean. Shut up. I'm not stupid. I promise. No, that's a lie. I am very stupid. But if the conditions had been pushed in a certain direction, if the ACP had launched 10 years ago rather than a few months ago, maybe this guy could have done something good. Maybe he wouldn't have had nowhere to go and no one to help him understand society. Frankly, the people of the old party are in such dereliction of duty in their sort of woke anti-communism and genocidal sort of advocacy, etc., that they've obliterated that possibility for even happening for a while now, right? So, I mean, I blame the last generation of communists for not creating the infrastructure that could have taken the radicalism that this guy felt, the anger at the system that this guy obviously felt, and put it into a progressive outlet. Have him actually help defeat these cartels in a meaningful way. I mean, he killed a guy. This guy's going to be replaced. He's already replaced, right? By someone just as bad, if not worse. So, again, it brings me to responsibility and the weight we need to accept onto our own shoulders of creating that place. A lot of people think that joining the Communist Party is like a way to have a social circle, right? We go to some protests, we do this, we do that, we talk about Marxism. It's all fun. No, we are serious about one thing: winning. We need to. And if we can't build the sort of institutions it takes, or that are able to be recognized by a guy like this Luigi Mangione, so that he could come into them and have a real outlet for that revolutionary fire that could have been lit inside his heart, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were talking about this earlier in your intro because I was busy getting some of the callers ready, but you also have, you can also see a reflection of the lack of like a Marxist Leninist or like a truly class conscious resistance movement, in Syria, in the Middle East, and you see the collapse of the axis of resistance, and you see the very, very unfortunate, because of course we stand fully in solidarity against imperialism and against the Z word and the is not real entity, but they're like, when you really get down to brass tacks, I mean, what are we really talking about? You're talking about a failure of analysis. You're talking about a failure to really truly understand the nature of power, and the way in which you actually consolidate it. And we understand and we know that power comes from the masses. And if you don't have a solid base in the masses, you got nothing.
Exactly, and that's one of the sad facts about Baathism, right? Is its base was always in the military, not the working class, and I guess whatever you could sort of call a parallel of the peasantry, right? And I was watching Alex McKay's show. Alex McKay from the Marx Engels Lenin Institute, by the way, the only other institute that'll teach you real Marxism Leninism on the internet. Go subscribe to his channel right now if you're not. He's fantastic. But I was listening to him because he knows a lot about Syria, and this was his sort of opinion too. Was that the issue is Baathism's failure to do that, to sort of not just like win the acquiescence or support of the working masses, but empower the working masses. So it's people defending their home, not a government that they're alienating. It's their government. They own it. It's their country. They own it. And this is sort of what happens when you can't have that. Now that's a little, there's a lot more to it. And you could obviously say that, the imperialists were constantly interfering, which they were, and not just in Syria, in Iraqi Baathism and going all the way back to the whole project, right? But at the same time, it's Marxism-Leninism that gives us the insight necessary to understand how we need to build up working class power in our particular situation. I don't know. I feel like maybe if things had gone down differently in the Soviet Union, the initial Iraqi-Soviet alliance could have led the whole Baathist movement into a direction like this. But instead, we're here, right? Where imperialism is destroying what's left of it. I mean, they're literally, the terrorists are destroying fighter jets and ships and all kinds of military equipment as we speak. The Zionists are parading across the South with impunity. It's a really, really bad time for Syria. And I just want to say one more thing. Sorry, Daniel. There are a lot of Syrian refugees from the ongoing struggle there. Here in the US, all over Europe. None of them are going back now that it's under Al-Qaeda rule, are they? Of course not. In fact, this is going to create an even worse refugee crisis. Because I'll tell you what, as these different groups, it's not just, HTS, there's a few others whose names are slipping my mind at the moment. But as they sort of vie for power and control and the West throws its weight, the Syrian people are going to be there, right? And I don't see a lot of them able to just live under the boot of imperialism. There's going to be resistance. And so it's going to just draw this violence out a lot longer. Because, that's basically a general rule of occupation is there's also resistance to occupation.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think as Alex McKay was saying on his stream earlier, that that none of this really changes the fact that imperialism is on the decline, and we're living in an emerging multipolar world. It's just that the empire is going to crash out. It's going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of setbacks, but you can't stop. You really can't stop the wheel of history. It's just it's just a sign that things are moving forward. But it is really tragic to see. I don't think any of us, it was a really sad day for me and many of the comrades in ACP.
Look, as empires decline and get pushed against the wall, they lash out because it's the only thing they have left. Lorshek makes a really good point here that the U.S. had already occupied a third of Syria and the most important parts, right? The parts with the oil and grain there, the ability to feed their people and supply the entire country with energy and sell energy, right? This is necessary to the stability of the Syrian people. And when you don't have food, you get angry. And if there's millions and millions of dollars coming from Western NGOs, the National Endowment for Democracy, etc., telling you it's actually Assad's fault over and over and over and over and over again, because the information warfare hadn't been sort of waged as effectively as it could have, then you're in for a world of pain. Pain grain, get it? Anyway, I think what they really needed was Stalin, because Stalin could come and show up and just eat all the grain out from under them with his big spoon. Right? Stalin's big spoon. I'm telling you guys, it's a big spoon. He also eats, from what I hear, babies and the babies of babies, etc. Sorry, we were getting real like dark and sad, and I had to lighten it up. Everyone loves a good Stalin eats everyone's babies joke, right? We got a lot of great calls lined up for tonight. I want to make a sort of request though. All day long, guys, all day, I get gibber at me on social media, right? Anti-communists of every variety all think that I need to hear their brilliant criticism. So tonight's the night. If you have some brilliant criticism of me, of the Communist Party, of communism and Marxism in general, or if you think you're the real Marxist and we're all stupid, come on in the voice channel or the voice chat. I will hear you out in good faith and respond to your criticism. Now, I'm also going to make a prediction. I am going to predict that none of these anti-communists, especially the ones who believe that they're communists, the ones with the hammer and sickle emojis and their social media and all of that, I'm going to predict that none of them will actually do this. Because I have a little tinfoil hat theory going on. I think that these people don't actually believe what they're saying. And I think, therefore, they cannot have a regular conversation about it, because that'll be immediately apparent that there's some ulterior motive here. Anyway, let's share my screen and see who we got lined up for y'all tonight. Share. There it is. All right. Who's our first caller, Daniel?
We got Robo Depot.
Robo Depot. That's an awesome name. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. This is actually the name of my other account. My account, my ACP account, is Cybernetic Dialectic.
Oh, okay. I remember you asking me on X if we were taking open callers. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. So I was just talking in the chat, and I'll kind of repeat the same question and outline that I gave them. So there's a sector in Silicon Valley that is ideologically headed by Peter Thiel in a lot of ways. You'll see like Mark Andreessen in this, the account Beth Bezos, and they're free market, libertarian oriented technological accelerationists, and they push for things like open source and decentralized control of AI. And their opposition would be like OpenAI, who is filling its staff with former NSA, and pushing for regulatory capture. So my question was, what should be a Marxist standpoint on this? And another bit of information that I'll add is there's an idea heavily floating around about universal basic compute, which is like you essentially get tokens, and certain actions will cost more tokens, and it'll be like a free market, and everyone's allocated a portion of tokens to use, and that's how they are going to democratically allocate the control of AI to society. That's the theory that is mainly being purported among
Yeah.
this group.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the tokens thing, and it reminded me of an episode of Black Mirror, where like everybody was in some big building they all lived in, and they rode like exercise bikes to generate power. You remember that one? And everything they had to do was bought with the whatever they worked for. Anyway,
Yeah.
so here's
You wouldn't have to earn it.
Well, exactly. You'd have to do labor and earn whatever you get. Look, I think that some sort of non-material currency is the future. I think it has to be, just the way we're going. What that looks like, I don't know. The more I learn about blockchain, the more I like it. I've been learning that just through working with the party. Our entire apparatus is through a blockchain. But here's my thing. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk scare me. Because it's all well and good to talk about, open source code and this and that. But they both have the opportunity to put this into practice and prove it, and neither have. And I think there's a reason for that. Elon Musk, I mean, here's the thing. Yes, him buying Twitter was a good thing, a very good thing. And we've had a lot more freedom there since then. But why are the algorithms for it hidden? Right? Why can't we see these? And it goes back to WikiLeaks exposés and even Snowden, because all of this social media have CIA backdoors in them. And all of them are manipulated even on another level. Right? We have the Twitter files that Musk was actually a part of, but that wasn't everything. That was a small part of it. Right? So I have a hard time believing that these people who use this libertarian rhetoric actually would follow through on it, because I think a lot of that is impossible. But I do think that the Marxist position on this should be that there is no such thing as intellectual property. And that includes stuff like this. If someone can look at the code and make a better version, they should be able to. How is that not better for all of the people, right? And that's why all of this code is hidden. They say that, well, they don't want anyone copying it, right? And creating a clone. But so what? If they really want a free market, that's what they got to deal with. The fact that they won't be a monopoly anymore. So I say that on open source and stuff like that, we stand alongside what they say, but we instead mean to carry that through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely share the same concerns, and that's where the question of, I think, ideas from people like Curtis Yarvin, who's like a monarchist, who does have clear influence with this same group in Silicon Valley, and there's a big portion of that group that very much just purport the same ideas directly. So this sort of elitist attitude that they have regarding capitalism is kind of splitting in two different directions over open sources.
I've heard about like Peter Thiel's beefs with I don't know if it was that guy, but it was with somebody else involved with their like old crew. If you remember when everyone was making fun of them for the Blood Boys and all that.
I don't know if I'm familiar.
And I remember one of them like being like going down the monarchism route. And Eddie said something a while ago to me that struck me as just spot on. He said that monarchists are just communists who haven't thought things through yet.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm not too familiar. I can vaguely see the connection, but I still need to study that connection more deeply.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Eddie would explain his point better than I could. Obviously, he's the one that made it. But here's the thing. What they do is they see that there are so many problems with our liberal bourgeois democracy, right? But without a real materialist analysis of how we got to where we are, how it developed into this, they just say, well, people believed in their king or their whatever, and the people were united under this. That just wasn't the case, right? Like, society had to go through capitalism, and it can't go backwards and just like start giving us feudal monarchies again based on bloodlines. I mean, first of all, in America, the people will never stand for such a thing. That's what this entire country was founded to overcome. But it's just impossible to go backwards. What they really want is the people to have a peaceful, stable, and happy life. And that's what everyone wants, really. The question only becomes, how do we get there? And in my experience, it's pretty easy to take people from, well, a free market can lead to blah, 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 into, here's the problem. The free market is what led us to here. Try as we might, we can't go back to 1863. With our technology, everything is planned these days. Everything. Every economy is planned. And the question then becomes, who is doing the planning and in whose interests? If you believe that this, future monarch that doesn't come out of, the feudal tiny city-states and kingdoms and fiefdoms and whatnot, but instead out of giant technologically advanced imperialist capitalism can actually plan things on behalf of the people, you're just crazy, right? The people have every capability, have the potential to plan things in our own interest. The trick is just in getting there,
So would you say that there's a nuanced position among Marxist-Leninists as far as how to go forward with AI policy? Because it seems to me that the landscape of the conversation is quite dominated by these, mostly by just effective accelerationism and AI safetyists who are just playing into the hands of the ruling elite.
Precisely. And here's my thing. Who are the libertarians calling for something similar to what we want? And by the way, there's some good stuff on AI in the ACP platform. We talk about that a little bit. But here's the thing. When libertarians tell us they want free markets, right? And to get rid of regulations because they stifle innovation and creativity and entrepreneurship, what does that actually lead to in the real world? All it leads to, it doesn't lead to, you and me being able to get together and start a business easier. It never has. It leads instead to those elites regulating themselves and giving themselves less restrictions on how to keep us out. Because here's the thing that libertarians never get. Bourgeois property, especially financialized bourgeois property, comes at the expense of over 90% of the entire country's ability to own any property at all, right? For them to force us into debts and work for them, we have to have no opportunity to make it on our own. They need to make us dependent upon them. And so, yes, I would love it if, we got rid of this bureaucratic red tape and tax laws, for example, that are designed to keep the monopolists free and us shackled. But that's not what no regulations actually means in concrete reality. In concrete reality, it is only the freedom of the monopolists to regulate and deregulate themselves, which they've done over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'll have one question. One more question, so we can pass this along to the other callers.
Sure.
Do you see a parallel between the same spirit that was noticed in MAGA communism about working class ideals that people like Jackson Hinkle use to point out this connection? Do you think there's a parallel with the effective accelerationist community about these policies going forward?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Look, I think one of the big problems with the MAGA communism slogan is all the lies that have been told about it. So, like, the way I like to think about it is basically that sorry, I gotta write a message to Daniel. Basically that MAGA communism is noticing that Trump and the Trump phenomenon and MAGA are different things, first of all, and represent a turning point in American politics, right? A turning point towards anger at the establishment. And so if there is a parallel between what we would like to do and what they would like to do, what we need to do is make it clear that people like Musk, people like Thiel, the entire Silicon Valley cartel is not anti-establishment, because they are the establishment, and they will never, ever freely just give up their power. What Daniel's here. What do you think about it, Daniel?
Yeah, so I'll just hop on in this because I did a lot of research on AI the past couple of weeks as I'm
cool.
I'm doing some I'm job hunting, and so I'm looking at the job market and stuff, and now everything has been basically disrupted by AI. So
right. Daniel, you know what I just realized?
Yo.
I don't think he can hear you.
Oh, okay. Hold on a sec. I got that.
Sorry, brother. Daniel was just talking, and he was only talking in the stream, not to you too. Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, okay.
He's
my
in there
bad.
now.
My bad. Sorry, I was just saying I was doing some research on this because I'm job hunting right now. So I kind of have.
He's muted right now.
I have a. Oh, damn!
Look at you. Why are you such an amateur, Daniel? Get it together.
Okay, all right. Sorry. This is like a new thing. We haven't done this that many times where I've hopped on in the middle of the stream to like give comment. But I was doing some research on this, Robo, because I'm doing some job hunting. So I'm trying to understand the job market dynamic as it relates to AI. And it's totally nuts. Like you have a situation where basically all of like the middle managers are getting automated right now out of the job, which like 10, 15 years ago, that wouldn't have been your take. Everybody was like kind of under the impression that it was like sort of more menial and like sort of manufacturing work that was going to get automated, but it's actually not. Like there will be automation, but it's actually going to be concentrated on the higher worth, the people who are higher earners, because it's actually that's where there's the largest profit to sort of be made. So all the managers are getting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said poetic justice.
I know it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing, and
we call this in the business. We call this part of reproletarianization.
I was gonna say, I was like, wow, this is like perfectly confirms the theory of reproletarianization.
Death of the middle classes.
The death of the middle class, and also because none of those profits are going to be socialized. So it's going to actually rapidly accelerate the class war. Because what it is, it's a massive development in the means and relations of production. There's stuff that used to take you hours and hours to do in terms of research, you can do in 5 minutes now.
You know, let me butt in real quick here, Daniel. And this is part of my book on reproletarianization. And by the way, this weekend, I'm going to be speaking at the Chicago Workers' School The name of the event is Proletarianization, the rise of finance and the fall of capital. And it goes into this because what does AI represent? What does the internet represent? What does the proliferation of this research that can be done in 5 minutes that used to take weeks and weeks, if you could even do it at different libraries all over the country, right? What does this represent other than the forces of production outmoding the old relations of production? Meaning we are so much more efficient and so much more advanced that the boss and employee relationship no longer makes sense. That whatever comes next has to have some higher, more advanced relationship. And it's on us to struggle for that to be the working class on top.
Yeah, no, it's really key for the working class to realize this is a massive opportunity for us to actually to seize the means of production and make it work for us. That's really, to me, that's like, it's going to be one of the keys of like a future socialist society.
For sure.
It's definitely going to be artificial intelligence, but at the moment it's in the hands of the bourgeoisie. So obviously it's going to cause chaos. It's going to escalate the class war. And it's part of, I mean, what was the United Healthcare guy doing? He was automating claim denials with AI. So we have to think about this. We have to do the research, and there's a lot of data actually on this. If you look up, McKinsey did a big fat report on this like a year or two ago, I want to say, and it's like a nice big huge report, and they actually went into all the industries, so you can actually see which key industries are going to be the most automated. And you actually see manufacturing is way down on the bottom, interestingly enough, and it's mostly knowledge workers and finance workers. The PMC is basically the moving target right now.
You got to send me that. A link to that later on, brother.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna hop off. We got some more calls.
I hope that helps. I forget your name. I apologize, brother. I remember Dialectical from Accent, not your name.
Cybernetic.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I hope that helps. Those were some robot. Thank you, Daniel. Those were some fantastic questions.
Yeah, I just see a gap here that's just ready for some more nuanced discussion. You know, I think a lot of the effective accelerationist community are pretty self-aware of like the short-sightedness of some of the ideas that are being proposed. So I think this is definitely an opportunity to show people the value of Marxist-Leninism ideas.
1,000%, brother. And if I could presume to give you some advice, go talk to them, right? Talk to them as equals on a level of trying to figure out a problem together rather than adversarially. I mean, you know the way to do it. You're a communist. And let me know. Come back on the show and let us know how those conversations go.
It goes into a debate that kind of tangents in so many different directions that it's not very productive yet. There's not enough ideas to really have proper conversation, it seems, at least from most of the people I've interacted with. But yeah, I made a post that was like E/ACC shaking hands with the working class, and that got liked by a few of the EACC members, and it was regarding the status of the assassin as a tech bro who had reposted a couple of Peter Thiel's ideas.
Interesting. All right, well, we got to leave it there, brother, because we got a bunch of other calls to get to. But if you do end up having some conversations, by all means, come back on, and we want to hear about them for sure. You're welcome back anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys have a good one. Thanks for having me on,
brother. Look, everybody, I think we don't, as Marxists, we don't focus enough on technology and cutting edge technology and how that changes things. One of Marx and Engels' primary concerns was how technology was changing things, right? What led to that technology? how did that technology interact with society as it is, and what's it going to become? This has to be part of our analysis if we're Marxists. And in the 21st century, that means AI. I know it's not as exciting as talking about wars and saying, yeah, screw the bourgeoisie, we're the proletariat, and sloganeering or whatever, but it is necessary. It is so necessary. Anyway, who do we have next, Daniel? You should. Oh, sorry. Wait. I muted you. No. I muted you on here. Give me a second. I gotta mute you on here whenever you talk when we're with somebody. Go ahead.
All right. We got Comrade Frederick.
Comrade Frederick. Oh, dude. Speaking of monarchism, what's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
What's up, man? What's up, man?
Not much.
Yeah, I saw
Doodling a picture of a wizard. You asked.
What do you call? What do you call that? The what was that? The little wizard, the Gomi wizard or something?
The what wizard? I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about, and you're so quiet. I need to turn your volume up.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, I have like a few questions. But first one being, any news about the People's Democracy Party in South Korea ever since the whole coup thing, or the whole,
Ooh. I haven't heard anything big on it yet. And I'm so like the PDP are our fraternal comrades, and things. Look, I don't want to speak out of turn because like information from there right now is not just like filtered through the normal imperialist propaganda and intelligence agencies, but it's also spotty. Remember, they declared martial law and voted against it in a day's time, and that came to us 2 days later. 2 days.
Yep.
So like with the situation changing so rapidly, I just don't want to give you any information that I think will be misleading. But I will say this, that the PDP will not stop their fight for a free Korea.
Right. Second question. So Christmas is coming up. What are you thinking about doing?
What am I doing for Christmas?
Yeah.
We are going over
What
to...
are we doing for a communist Christmas?
It's surprisingly boring. When I was little, my whole family, we used to go to Youngstown. That's where my mom's family's from, in a Irish immigrant neighborhood there, which got more and more run down and sort of turned into a ghetto as I got older. But my grandparents died years ago. Since then, my sister and I have sort of taken turns hosting Christmas Eve. When I lived in Ohio, I would do it, then I'd move somewhere and she would blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the last few years, I took Thanksgiving and she took Christmas. So we're going over to my sister's house. I gotta pick up my mom, who lives near me, and take her over there. And my mom, from an Irish immigrant background, has 13. Wow, 9 brothers and sisters. 13 is my wife's family. Sorry. And so I think half of her sisters will be there. All the kids will be there. It's just a big family thing. We have a traditional thing, turkey dinner and all that stuff. We have the traditional, rad lib aunt and racist uncle, and they argue about politics. It's the same as most families.
Mine is kind of similar when it comes to like, the people. I have like cousins and shit that come over for Christmas.
Oh, that's good.
But we do things a little bit differently. We have like enchiladas and that kind of stuff.
Oh, awesome. Are you what, Mexican?
No. My cousin's husband is Mexican.
Oh, okay. I get you. Well, that's cool. When I was young, my best friend growing up, his name was Sean. Unfortunately, he passed away when we were 20. But I used to go to his house for different, holiday events and stuff sometimes. And they were very Italian. And it threw me for a loop going there for Christmas dinner one time because it was just a bunch of seafood. And I'm allergic to fish. So like I had like 3 things I could eat out of this giant Italian people spread. There's like eel.
I thought it'd be like spaghetti and stuff.
Say again?
I thought it would be like spaghetti and stuff.
No, well, I guess Italy, it's weird because like I had a lot of I'm a second generation immigrant, right? Not my parents, but my grandparents on both sides were immigrants. So like I kind of hung out with different people who were immigrants. So his parents actually I don't know why I'm telling you all this background info, but I find it interesting. His father was Serbian and his mother was Italian, like from Italy, right? So like it's very weird how we got together, but Italian people from Italy eat so much less pasta than Italian Americans do, because Italy is surrounded on all sides by ocean. They eat a ton of seafood, and I learned that on that Christmas. That Christmas when I went over there for a Christmas dinner, which I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
I have went to like an Italian restaurant. They do serve like seafood.
Oh yeah.
Like I think there's one thing. Like I thought it was like chicken, but it was actually octopus, like fried octopus.
Oh yeah. Fried calamari. That's like a classic Italian restaurant appetizer, brother.
Yeah, man.
There's a really, really good one in Cleveland. If anyone's in Cleveland, there's a place called Bruno's. That was my mom's favorite restaurant. And they, yeah, Daniel, I'll stop talking about food. I know. I apologize. Anyway, what else you got for us, Frederick?
So this is like a response to like the Twitter people. So they keep saying that like I bowed down to Noah, to the debate or something.
You bowed down to me?
I'm just gonna have to tell it straight, like I didn't bow down to really anyone. I just came here willingly and I read Marx and that kind of stuff, and I got interested.
It's wild. Like, I don't get how people get so. Look, anyone who's searching for like the actual truth has my respect. That's all it takes. And when people are so tied to like some kind of dogma, whether it be a dogma they think is Marxist or monarchist or whatever, that they can't just have a conversation about the truth, and they have to like say like, oh, you bowed down to so and so because you started reading Marx and realized, oh, maybe someone had lied to you about it. That just seems so silly to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like originally I thought Marxism was this woke, like like it ain't like what it is in the past,
Precisely.
And, like it's changed.
Yeah,
and like
that's
there's
like
no going back.
I was talking about
There's like no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, but you were actually cutting out. Can you repeat that again?
Sorry. Yeah, I thought like the Marxism in the past, like the Soviet Union was dead and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of propagandists that like they specialize in saying that kind of thing. James Lindsay, right? James Lindsay passes himself off as this academic and intellectual, and he basically makes the case that Marxism was just different, and now it's this wokeism, right? It just changed, rather than wokeism having nothing at all to do with Marxism, right? And I don't think it's anyone's fault
Well,
if they
it kind of
believe
does
that.
with like the Frankfurt School, but they were like fake leftists anyway.
Precisely, and they were funded by the CIA. You know, there's,
Yeah, no,
you know what,
the
Bridget?
World
You know what I think
Congress
you would really, really get a lot out of? There's a video on our YouTube channel from a few years ago called, I think it's called the CIA and the Frankfurt School. It's an interview with Gabriel Rockhill, who is a sort of Marxist academic that is somewhat opposed to the bourgeois academy. In other ways, he's not, but that's okay. He has been researching this specific issue for years now, and he's gotten new stuff like Freedom of Information Act info, and he puts together an entire theory on how all of this, what we call the fake left, comes together, and he explains it really, really well in this interview we did with him. Definitely check it out after this. I think you'll really like it.
Yeah.
You'll get a lot from it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like nicknames you could call these people, like the synthetic left,
Yep.
the CIA left.
Yep.
You know,
I usually call them the quote unquote left or the fake left. He calls them, or he calls the leaders of this movement radical recuperators, because what they're doing is recuperating possible radicalism back into the forces of the ruling class, right? That's like what people like AOC play that role. The organizations of the quote unquote left before the Communist Party was reconstituted, they played that role. I mean, think about the old party. They were just funneling people into the Democrats, and that's all they did, you know? People joined.
Yeah, and Browder, when he was like, you know, chairman of the CPUSA, he was doing that too. With like trying to move things.
In a way, he was more like of an honest liquidationist. So, and here's a kind of a funny little tidbit. Earl Browder wrote a book basically saying that imperialism carried with it some of the characteristics of a younger and progressive capitalism in the USA specifically, and therefore a communist party wasn't needed. What was needed instead was an association of communists that could serve as a sort of think tank to help guide the ruling class towards a more progressive view. It was almost like he went backwards to Menshevism, right? And because of this, he decides to liquidate the Communist Party, and he does so, right?
Yeah, like a neo-Menshevik type of idea.
It had to go through this stage, whatever. It was really weird. William Z. Foster actually comes out of retirement, sick as a dog, basically on his deathbed. He comes back from the USSR where he was getting medical care in order to fight to preserve the party, right? And wins. He writes a book called Marxism, Leninism versus Revisionism about Browder. But here's the thing about Browder that I find fascinating. After all of this goes away, he dies later on. He said until he died, he claimed that he was under orders from Moscow to do that. Now, who knows if that's true or not, right? But it's interesting to think about the way realpolitik works versus what is said in theory texts, right? Because there's always some kind of disconnection. He was saying that the leading luminaries of Marxism were telling him to say these, basically what he would have thought were lies, and liquidate the American Party in service of the world communist movement. Now, again, I don't know if he was lying. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was an excuse. Maybe they were anti-communists in the Soviet Party telling him this. I don't know. But it's a good way to look at the actual political machinations of organizations versus the theory.
Yeah. But even today, Browder is still rooted in the CPUSA. It's not really what he would have wanted, but he got what he wanted, which is his think tank, which is what USA is.
Yep.
Right now.
And what's crazy is that his whole thing was like the communist I forget what he was calling them, like some sort of association, where they were attaching themselves to the New Deal Democrats at the time, right? And that was his goal. That was what they wanted. He wanted them to do. And if you look at the old party now, that can no longer rightfully call itself communist or anything, they've attached themselves to the Democrats in content. They just try to put up a mirage of being communist, of being Marxist-Leninist. And that brings us back to that idea, radical recuperation, right? They're recruiting anyone that looks at, Google, which, by the way, has been tampered with clearly in not putting the American Communist Party in the search results. But whatever, people say, okay, I know something has to change. Let's look into this communism thing, and they get shown the old party, who then recuperate that possible radicalism back into the ruling class. And honestly, it just watch that interview, brother. It's so good. You'll love it. You got anything else for us before you go tonight?
So it's about the whole CO thing. So they caught him. Turns out that he has something to. He's a fan of the Unabomber.
Yep. Yeah, apparently he was like posting.
So basically, he's a anarcho-primitist, I guess.
Yeah. He was posting a bunch of, and you know what's really weird? Those, the like sort of milieu that call themselves post-left. They got really into Ted Kaczynski too. Very bizarre, but I guess he was like posting Kaczynski quotes all the time, and I don't know. It's just middle class anarchism. That's all it ever is. It's wild. I don't know. I gotta interrupt this real quick. Hey, anti whatever trad. No like lying or gibbering in the chat tonight. Tonight is the night that if you have a problem, you can call in. You can come in the VC and we'll go over it. I'll hear you out. But none of the weird stuff in the chat tonight. So if you have the courage of a normal man and not a little girl, you'll do that. Discord.gg/MidwesternMarks.
Yeah.
All right, Frederick. It was great talking to you, brother.
Okay, man. Bye, bro.
Yeah, we'll see you next time, brother. I don't know what this is about, but the Dome Wizard. Yes, sure. I haven't thought about the post-left people in a while. The kind of people that were like, oh, there's no such thing as a left anymore. It's a very, and they get like very overly academic about things. But from a materialist perspective, there's always a left and there's always a right, because they're not based in abstract characteristics, right? And if you guys want to hear my actual whole spiel on counting characteristics and how it's anti-Marxist and not reflective of material reality, I'm going to be going over it in Chicago this weekend at the event, so come check it out. I want to take a minute before we get to our next call and say, if you have not yet liked and shared the stream, do so now. How are we like an hour and a half in and I'm only seeing like a handful of likes? Come on, people. We count on you to help us get over algorithmic suppression. 20 Faces makes a good point here. He says, if anything, there's no right. Kind of, well, the right's the ruling class, right? But ideologically speaking, among the working class, we have less of a right wing and more of an anti-leftist wing, right? People that see these liberals running around flying our flags, using our symbols, and calling themselves left, and they get repelled by them, and so they move to what they're told is the opposite of this. Absolutely, they're wizards. Anyway, who do we got next, Daniel?
Hey, 1 sec. Let me get them in here. Hey, we've got Beep Bop.
Beep Bop. All right, what's up, Beep Bop?
Yeah, that's just to save you the pain of pronouncing my actual name. Anyway, so I am coming at this, especially in the context of some of the conversations around Syrians, especially Syrians in America who have been anti-Assadist and maybe quote unquote free Syrians, as well as Syrians within Syria itself. So before I get started, like what is your take on like some of the discourse around how like these Syrians should be quote unquote deported, and these Syrians, now that Assad has gone, the anti-Assadists should just move back to Syria? And like I've seen quite a bit of like vile, yeah. So like, what do you think about that?
I mean, it depends, right? Like you can't just lump all of these refugees into one group. People who are fleeing Syria because of the civil war, because of the sanctions and the constant fighting, they're gone. But when they cheer on the sort of terrorist occupation of the country, from a place where they're getting aid after fleeing it, it's really disrespectful. I never called to deport anybody. I mean, what does that even do? You know what I mean? Like, who am I? But it's extremely disrespectful to simply buy into what the ruling class says while taking advantage of the resources of the country that you go to. You know what I mean? Like there's millions and millions of dollars going to these refugees, and frankly, 78% of Americans are struggling paycheck to paycheck. Now, I'm not saying don't help the refugees, but it's our own ruling class creating those refugees in the first place. So like cheering on the people that created them as refugees seems really odd to me. That's all.
Okay. I would respond to that in two ways. Firstly, like while you characterize the people taking over Syria right now as terrorists, and you might be accurate in that, the people might not necessarily perceive it as that, because for them, Assad has been this pretty tyrannical dictator who has done a lot of bad things. If you look at the visuals coming out of the prison camps, he has disappeared a lot of people, including like probably people who these people have known. And while these people, the forces on the ground right now might not be perfect, we're able to like extend a kind of sympathy, like to Palestinians, for instance. Hamas is not a perfect group. Neither are the Houthis. Both of them, to an extent, have like Islamist tendencies. Do we not extend a certain kind of sympathy towards them for like despite these groups being imperfect, these are an oppressed people, and they might like buy into
brother, I think there's a difference between not perfect and Al-Qaeda terrorists that are already randomly, and they're not, half of them maybe aren't even from Syria. They're coming in through the south in Turkey, and anyway, they're already kidnapping women. They're already engaged in sectarian violence. So like that's a big difference between that and not perfect. Assad wasn't perfect, right? Here's the thing. There's always, and I was talking about this at the beginning of the show, there's always an informational part of warfare. And what sanctions and blockades and propaganda warfare do is sort of point people within a country at their own government who aren't actually behind this. Look, Assad wasn't, the leader that I would have voted for, but he was in a position to take back parts of Syria that had been taken from it. And that's a big deal. And he was under attack the entire time. The entire time. Right? And so when talking about, like, they disappeared people and arrested people and blah, 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 right? We have to put it in that context, because there's nothing in the world that is free of context. Assad wasn't any worse than any leader in the whole world, other than maybe, the Chinese are like really above the fray these days. But all states imprison people, all states engage in repressions and blah, 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 blah. The question is where the aggression comes from.
No, there are two problems with that. Firstly, you talk about the broader geopolitical context, right? Unfortunately, people don't make decisions like as some perfect utility monster, calculating like the perfect geopolitical outcomes, right? If, like, say the Indian government were to like today repress me and like bomb my cities and disappear my family, it really does not matter to me whether like the Indian government is acting as a sovereign entity or whatever. I would see like any outside entity which liberates me and my family as saviors. I'm not saying we have to support Al Qaeda as like external third parties, but what I'm saying is, can we not extend sympathy or humanity towards the Syrian refugees?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I think I have what you were saying. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. I apologize. I have a problem with interrupting. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying. I apologize.
Okay, and yeah, that is. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but that's my primary thrust over there is. While we as third-party actors can like say like Stalin was good, for contextually, you wouldn't go to Ukrainians at the end of the Holodomor. It was not a genocide, even if it was not a genocide. You wouldn't go to Ukrainians at the end of the Holodomor and say, look, Stalin did nothing wrong. That's just like that's just not how human beings operate, right? Like human beings don't operate on the level of, okay, Stalin was fighting this greater evil of the Nazis. No, like the Ukrainians saw their families die. Like the Ukrainians had to like resort to cannibalism. Like they saw their mothers and sisters reduced to bones. Like, of course, they're gonna hate Stalin. You don't go to them and say like,
I get what you're saying now. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Let me ask you a question. Is the truth important to you? I don't mean that as like some sort of gotcha. Sorry, let me like sort of fill in the blanks. I don't mean that as like a gotcha or like to like force you to say the truth is bad, whatever. I mean it as in the truth isn't always the most important thing to everyone. Sometimes an emotional reaction can be more important. So in measuring those two things, do you put more emphasis on the truth or on your immediate reaction to a thing happening?
I would say the emphasis is on the truth, but also how the truth is conveyed. Like if like China apologists were to say there's nothing happening in Xinjiang, like it's all fine, like that's gonna turn people off. If like Stalin apologists were to come to me and say like Stalin did nothing wrong, that's like I'm not gonna buy it. It's gonna be how you package the truth, how it's sold to me. Like going out on Twitter and saying deport the free Syrian Americans, that's just like anti-human. Like it's just.
I get what you're saying. See, for me, I think you're right that how you package the truth is everything. But I also think that how lies are packaged is even more important, because that is what gets us to sort of disbelieve anything that goes against our preconceptions. You even mentioned something earlier that's a complete myth, the Holodomor, right? And the Xinjiang thing. There, that right there, how the lies are packaged matters just as much as how the truth is packaged. But here's the thing, right? Always, there is a larger context to what is happening. And when people sort of isolate one thing or another thing, they get rid of that context. And that context is necessary to understanding the truth. Like I said, I don't call for anyone to get deported just because who's going to listen to me anyway? But it's incredibly disrespectful for people to fail to sort of learn the facts about a given situation and then speak with such conviction and firmness as if they are unquestionably correct about things that they're objectively wrong about. Or did I say long about? I meant wrong about. Sorry.
I think that's fair. That's fair to an extent. But then again, like, it's also about how you package your response, right? Like, the images coming out of that prison, I don't want to even try pronouncing it, is objectively horrible. Like, they're unable to like get to like many levels and like the kind of starvation and beating. Like, you say like all governments repress people. There's also like the matter of scale and intensity. Like, yes, the Chinese government does repress people, but the Chinese government isn't doing this. Like, it's the scale is like objectively horrible. Like, when responding to that, if your response is Assad didn't do anything wrong, that just doesn't sell.
Well, the real world isn't like that. There's no one who's done nothing wrong and no one that's done that's done everything right, right? Like, that's just not realistic. That's not the real world. Mao in China, you bring up China. Mao famously said that Stalin had done 70% good things and 30% bad, and he would be happy if he got a 50-50 rating after his life was over, right? And I think that's a good way to look at it. Like, of course, Stalin did things that were wrong, but was he this bloodthirsty dictator that they use all of these distortions of real events to paint him as? Of course not. And they've done the exact same thing to Assad. Now, I'm not like a Baathist, right? And I'm not Syrian. But what I can do is respect the position that government apparatuses are in that forces them to act in ways they otherwise wouldn't, right? When your country is being occupied, right? When you're in a state of war, this is not the same circumstances as you or me having the government randomly come in and like bomb our houses. It's just not. We don't understand those conditions because we've never been in them, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, people talk about the heavy-handed nature of the Soviet government after Stalin died. And this is true, right? They did get more and more heavy-handed, but they were never given a single day, a single minute of peaceful development. They were under attack the entire time. The entire existence of the Soviet Union was led under attack from the Western imperialists. And this includes multiple invasions, one of which during the Great Patriotic War murdered over 20 million people. That is the context for, oh, they did this mean thing and that mean thing. In Syria, literally the lands of Syria that can actually help them produce things and grow economically, which means a stable, peaceful, and happy life for the people, were stolen from them. That has to factor into any analysis of the situation. I'm not saying Assad did nothing wrong, but I'm saying you have to look at the situation in order to analyze it properly.
I agree with that. I'm not that well versed with Syrian.
Hold on 1 second, brother. 1 second. All right, stop. Like, try muting and then unmuting yourself because your voice is real distorted at the moment.
Is it better now?
Ah, crap. No, it's not good. Tell you what, try coming back into the thing later. If you want to continue this discussion, I'm happy to. Go out and we'll try to get back to you later.
Yeah. I think I'm done. It's pretty late here. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for the call, brother. That was good. Also, I want to say that like this Nihilo guy asked a debate without moderators. Well, this isn't a debate. He and I are just having a conversation, and we don't agree. If you notice the way he talked to the way I talked, it wasn't about trying to like get each other. It was about trying to actually understand what's happening. And that always, in any disagreement, that has to be our goal if we're Marxist. Because I don't care if I was right originally. I care if I become right, or correct is a better word, really. If he had something that he could have taught me, I want to listen to it. I don't want to marry myself to some debate position where if it ends up being wrong, I got to stick with it. I mean, come on, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't want to just be wrong, you know. Anyway, who do we got next, Daniel? Daniel. Did I mute you? No, I didn't mute you again. Why can't I hear you?
Oh, I was having some weird internet stuff.
Hello? Son of a bitch. No, that's okay.
Hello?
Yeah. What's up? Who's this?
Well, I got a very important question for you.
I bet you do, John. What's that question?
So, why do skunks like to sit in the front during a church service?
Why do skunks like to sit in the front during a church service? I got nothing.
Because it's the most important pew.
Yeah.
So, what do you get when you cross a dinosaur and an evergreen?
A dinosaur and an evergreen? Yeah, I don't know.
A tree rex.
A tree rex. Wow.
Yep. Gotta watch out for its mark.
Wow. By the way, let me interrupt you real quick. Jibber jabbering in the chat is forbidden. Forbidden from now on. If I see jibber jabber, I'm gonna give you two chances. The first time I'm gonna say get in the BC. Get in the BC. The second time I'm gonna say stop being a bitch. Get in the BC. And then I'm just gonna ban you because I if you're just here to whine, that's not the point. The point is to actually come to conclusions. So 20 faces. If you can back up this statement, do so in the VC right now. Daniel, give him priority when he comes in. I'll wait.
Well, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So, communist parties I often identify each other in different countries to kind of recognize their legitimacy, right? So, how did communist parties recognize their international counterparts as legitimate in eras when there was like splits in the major communist powers, like the Sino-Soviet split, for instance? And how might that relate to ACP?
It's a good question because it actually stems from that. Back in the day, it was through the Comintern, right? And the Bolsheviks pretty much decided who was legitimate and who wasn't based on who could join. And as the revolutions of the 20th century went on, right, this sort of changed and the different rules changed, and we got to this point where certain parties and organizations were considered through their work in the Comintern, which, you know, they had to prove themselves in their own country first, etc. That was who becomes legitimate. Now, in our era, it's sort of the detritus left over after the fall of the Soviet Union and trying to rebuild, right? So SolidNet, or the IMCWP International. I forget what the acronym is, but Solidnet was the sort of official internationalist organization of the legitimate parties. But over the years, like, some parties have fallen into disarray, others aren't, etc. And so other organizations come up. And really what you want to look for is people who actually are known, or organizations that are known in their own country and which international organizations they're part of. So right now, the anti-imperialist platform is huge. This is like one of the legitimate anti-imperialist internationalist organizations. And I want to say that the American Communist Party was recently voted onto its leading bodies, which I think is pretty cool. But there's also sort of ties into those old Comintern parties that really make or break the legitimacy of a given group in the eyes of people in other countries. So as far as liberals are concerned, there's 1,000 communist parties and blah, blah, blah. As far as the Communist Party of Georgia, for example, is concerned, the American Communist Party is the reconstitution of the old CPUSA, which was forced to happen when the old party liquidated itself.
So I guess
all right, hold on 1 second. Anti-YT, last chance to not be a bitch. VC or ban? What's it going to be? Sorry, give me 1 second, John. You got to tell me, anti-YT, VC or ban? TikTok, come on, there's someone on a call. You're being very disrespectful. Anyway, we'll let him answer. If he answers with anything other than I'm getting him VC, I'm banning him.
With liquidation, would you say it's a very fluid situation?
No. Oh, that was bad.
Well, I know it can be really draining.
Yes, it can. It can, John. This guy gets me.
Yeah, well, I got to plumb the depths of all the dad jokes.
Get him out of here, Daniel. I love that guy. All right, so anti-YT, you are not getting in the VC at discord.gg/MidwesternMark, so I'm afraid I gotta ban you, buddy. Sorry. No more whininess and jibber jabbering in the chat. If you can't stand on business, what are you doing? Like, what kind of, like, seriously, where I'm from, if you say something, you need to be able to back it up. When I think about the kind of people that just want to, like, kind of vomit nonsense out like that, it reminds me of the people that got beat up a lot, right? That would just, like, in real life, you say that to me and you're going down. That's all there is to it, right? Except on the internet, they feel like they can get away with it. This is a good question, though. Why do I like to whine about whining? I find the irony amusing. Anyway, who is our next call? Let's hope this anti-YT guy actually shows. I doubt it, though. He seems like a scared little girl. Go ahead, Daniel. Who do we have next?
Yeah, I doubt it. He's just a troll. We got Hob. Hob has some interesting question about ethical investing as a communist.
Okay, tight. What's up, Hob? How you doing?
Hob.
Where you at, Hob?
Hob, do you read?
I don't know if Hob reads, but I'm looking at his profile picture right now, and I think.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. By the way, does your T-shirt and your picture say that NATO is a terrorist organization?
Yeah, it's merch from Revolutionary Blackout Network.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's my hoodie.
I'm gonna have to look at their merch. That's really cool. I'm gonna call. I'm gonna text Nick after this and see if he can give me one. I'll give him like a Midwestern Marx exchange. What's up? What's up though? How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good. Just enjoying the stream. So my question is concerning like the Marxist ethics of investing, mostly in the stock market, because I've seen a lot of stuff from the Unusual Whales account on Twitter, and they've got some subversive ETFs that allow you to follow the trades of either the Democrats or the Republicans. And Autopilot is an app that allows you to copy exactly the trades of certain members of Congress, such as Nancy Pelosi.
That's
so I was wondering
that's really
if
smart.
you could talk about, yeah, and it like it shows you, you know, how much she's up for the year, and it's quite a lot. So I was wondering if you could talk about the Marxist ethics of investing in the stock market, particularly relating to following Congress's trades, because a lot of what they invest in are really, really ruthless and bloodthirsty companies, and a lot of them are directly military industrial complex companies.
Yep. And we've had this joke in the Institute that as soon as we start making real money, we're going to invest it all in Raytheon. But here's the thing. As an individual, the amount of capital that you can command is like absolutely minuscule. So in general, I would say invest in whatever you want. If you feel fine about it personally, just do it. Get yours, right? We all have to live in this world. And if we're using that in what we consider an ethical manner, the returns from that, I think that's a good thing. Me personally, I would invest in, I don't know if I do anything in the military industrial complex, but I have no problem investing whatsoever. I think that's a good thing. I would love to even start my own business. I think that there's like these myths about lifestyle politics that go around the left. So I really like the way your question is more like a deeper sort of like, what's the actual ethical concern here, rather than just no, you can't do that if you're a leftist, which always reminds me of, you know, the iPhone argument. I wish I had a better answer for you, so let me go a little bit deeper. A Marxist virtue ethic is something that's never really existed, right? Because of the inherent pragmatism we have as Americans, and within the actions you have to take as a Marxist-Leninist, we haven't really had time for that. I think the period of the middle classes and the unique situation this period of reproletarianization gives us, where the actual currency has divorced itself from value so far that most of it is debt. It's based in debt, which is nothing but, you know, a marker on value yet to be created, which is never actually created. So it just spirals on and on. It puts us in these unique situations like what you're describing here. Like, could I and should I invest in something that is maybe this bloodthirsty company? What if I use my money virtuously after that? And I think so long as you are genuinely putting your effort towards revolutionary change and the class struggle, I think you're good. I do. Now, that would be within reason, right? I'm not saying like invest in something you know for a fact is killing millions of people right now, and that your money not going into it would mean millions of people's lives are saved. That would be crazy. But short of something extreme like that, I say go for it, brother. Sorry for the ramble. I hope that helps, though.
No, that was good. Thank you.
My pleasure, brother. Is that all you got?
Yeah, that was all I had.
Awesome. Well, thank you for a great question, and feel free to call back anytime you want. We're getting around the end of the night tonight, guys. Daniel, do we have anybody left or no? I'll keep going if there's more calls. I know you just time them to not.
Yeah, we may have like one or two after this one, but we have West Country Kami.
Excellent. West Country Kami, what's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Very good there, Noah. It's been a while since I've been on the show. Good to be back.
It is great to hear from you again. Yeah, you've had some interesting thoughts before, so I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, well, on a similar issue anyway. Well, basically, the reading continues, and I've finally read for the first time Marxism and the National Question. Definitely was Stalin's best writings that everyone hopes about, and well, thought it'd be useful to discuss it, plus help build some confidence in speaking publicly. So I was just wondering if you'd say if there's anything useful you could use for like an American context with it.
You know,
if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I actually quote Stalin's Marxism and the National Question in my own theory that I keep pointing to my famous book that has yet to come out, which I've rewritten. I'm on my 12th rewrite, by the way. I'm kind of a perfectionist. Like, I need my theory to be so on point, and I need the prose to match. Anyway, you don't care about that. But yeah, so attached to my reproletarianization theory is also something I call the American trajectory, which is how the American people become a people, right? When Stalin is talking at the very beginning of the National Question piece, he's talking about what characteristics nation states have, right? And how we get to them. And I think that's important because I think what we've seen over the last 248 years is the same thing happening with the creation of an American people that happened when, the Georgian people were created way back when, or the Russian, or what, the English or whatever, right? And in doing this, we should look at the sort of qualifiers that Stalin says are what make up a nation, the things like the economic bonds, right? The common language, the common region, etc. And when we do that, and Stalin says basically, if you all have all of these things, this is what turns just like disparate peoples into that are all involved in these things into a nation. And when you do that with America, you come to three revolutionary moments that drive forward the development of us as a people, and all of them are based in the class struggle. Now, the first is 1776, right? Getting rid of the foreign occupier. This is the sort of embryo of what is to become the American people. Now, this begins a whole new process and new primary contradiction driving society forward. And that is the struggle between a developing proletariat and a developing bourgeoisie, which is interesting because it's new. And all of this is new. And this leads us, especially with the form it takes, which is chattel slavery, it leads us to our second revolution, which is at the end of the Civil War, when the enslaved part of the proletariat, the black proletariat, right, rises up en masse against the ruling class, specifically the section of the ruling class that was trying to break away, right, in order to preserve its slavery. And it creates a new revolutionary moment. The black proletariat is now part of this, rather than relegated to the disgusting role of property. But again, pieces of the old always reside within the new and find new form. This leads to Jim Crow, right? And the Jim Crow era, leading us to our third revolution. And I'll skip all the rest of the rise of the middle classes and the communist movement, blah, blah, blah. But the third revolution is the civil rights movement, led by Martin Luther King Jr., who is probably the greatest revolutionary in this country's history. It's this that is another nodal point in the development of the American people, right? It is the Black proletariat yet again leading the way towards the future and dragging the entire rest of the country into the future, who largely wanted nothing to do with it at the time, right? Still based in that the ideological problems of racism and all that kind of stuff, right? And so in the 21st century, we are all sort of the children of Martin Luther King Jr., and the creation of the American people leads us to now, where the opportunity for a united struggle as a people for national self-determination is possible. And I know like a lot of people will say, what, America already self-determines? What I mean is that we have a ruling class that has become, as this process goes on, supranational. They stand above the nations and exploit us as a people through debts, through forcing our dependence in buying things, blah, 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 right? Now, however, this united people can give us a struggle for sovereignty. And that is the form our class struggle takes in this era. I know that was a whole long thing, but I hope that helped.
Oh no, it was interesting to hear. Really, I mean, obviously from the Americans' perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I
will say that. I mean, if it's all right, I mean, because one thing I will mention right now, though, I mean, it has been quite useful, at least, well, unfortunately, not the most well read yet, but it has been quite useful reading this book, understanding some stuff on more the British perspective, and more recently, especially with the Scottish independence movements, which it's mostly died down now. But again, well, you can see many links to that in this book, and well, basically, it's just it's bourgeois nationalism, really, and at the heart of it. And also, like a lot of the Trotskyist parties, they've got behind it as well, arguing that how by ending the British state, we can bring down capitalism here. But when the truth is, how it's just going to go from the British bourgeoisie to the Scottish bourgeoisie.
Yep.
That's what it's really going to happen.
And that's
and the truth is, I mean,
and you know, I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother. Real quick, Stalin spends a lot of time in the national question criticizing the Bundists, right, for their reactionary federalism and dividing the working class up amongst the nationalities against each other. Because that formal division, similar to American apartheid and Jim Crow, sets them up to look at each other as not the same, right? After the Civil Rights Revolution, though, here, that ends for us formally. After the Bolsheviks win out in the RSDLP, that ends within the party. And we can make that same sort of progress. But Daniel's here. He seems to have something to say. What's up, brother? Oh, he just took off. There he is. What's up?
Hey, no, well, I just wanted to comment. I don't know if you touched on it, but of course, you know, Carlos Garrido.
You're not in the Discord. He's not going to hear you.
Word. Sorry. I was just saying, I don't know if you mentioned it, but Carlos Garrido's Why We Need American Marxism. It's like a really great sort of application of the national question in the American context. You know, and also, I don't know if you've connected with the folks over at CPGML, but I mean, obviously, like one of the things that we're developing is that question of like how we manifest the class struggle within our own national context. And as you can see, like in Syria, where there wasn't really like a mass base in terms of like the working class, and that the political parties there were based more in the bourgeois elements and the military elements that you didn't have a successful revolution or a successful revolutionary movement or party. So just wanted to throw that in there, that if you haven't, like, it would be great to check out Carlos Garrido's book on American Marxism after reading Stalin and the National Question. It's really great.
100%.
Yeah, thanks for that there, Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I haven't read that one yet, although I have read The Purity Fetish, which was definitely great. That definitely must read.
I missed what you said. You talk so fast, man.
Yeah, I know.
You forget I'm a slow American. I need you to.
I'll try and slow it down there, dude. I need to learn this myself. I mean, yeah, basically, I haven't read One the American Marxism, but I have definitely read The Purity Fetish, which is definitely a must read. That one's great. Absolutely
that's
fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, that is,
that one.
It's funny because I edited that book, and honestly, it's one of the things that I'm proudest of. It's Carlos's book, right? But getting that ready for people to actually read it, it was a big process, and I think it's one of the most important books of our era. I really, really do.
Absolutely.
All right, you got anything else for us? Because we're like already over time. I got a few more to get to.
Yeah, well, I will say one more thing though, and that's one line that did stand out to me most in this book, and that was in the ending chapter, I think, on like the national struggle in Russia. And this one really speaks well for actually creating unity between different nations in different cultures in any nation to actually build a true working class movement. And I'll quick read out here. The worker lives his life of his organization, which stimulates his intellectual growth and educates himself, and thus, acting within his organization and continually meeting their comrades from other nationalities, and side by side with them, waging a common struggle under the leadership of a common collective body, he becomes deeply imbued with the idea that workers are primarily members of one class family, members of a united army of socialism. That line stood out to me most in that book. I mean,
yep.
I think that one speaks a lot.
I love it. And you were asking for sort of how it fits into the American situation. And you can think about that as racist, right? In America, because of chattel slavery, racialization happens rather than the sort of national tensions that were going on in Russia when Stalin was writing that, right? And this is why the Communist Party was the first integrated political organization in the entire country, right? Because that Marxism gave us the clarity to see that racialization and setting us apart and organizing us as separate things could never lead to a communist revolution. We had to, as the old saying goes, black and white unite and fight. Because the struggle of the black working class is the struggle of the white working class. It's the same thing. Yes, it takes different forms, right? They're different histories, but it's all part of the American people and our collective struggle against our ruling class. Anyway, thank you so much for your call, brother. I always love talking to you. Call back whenever you want. You are always welcome.
Yes, I'll find stuff to talk about. And again, full solidarity here from over here in Great Britain.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Solidarity to you too. Before our next one, Michelle, thank you for the $2. Saying lots of great questions tonight. Great show. And thank you, Mac, for the membership. Somebody scoop up Mac's membership because those go real quick anymore. Mac, by the way, is featured every now and again on Noah's show. We do a segment called Debunking Anti-Communist Lies together. And next week, I believe we are going to be doing another one of those. I'll let you guys know what specifically it's on once we have like sort of promo art for it. Anyway, who's next, Daniel? Hold on. God damn it. I suck. See, this time I sucked. All right. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
We got Dragon Slade.
Dragon Slade. See, this is suspicious to me because I am decidedly pro dragon because of how often they kill wizards. That's just me.
Okay, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I have some role-playing games I love to play too much.
But mine's just it's an inside joke. I like to call liberals wizards because they think that they can utter magic words and change reality. I'm stupid, man. What's up? What do you got for us?
Okay. Do you think Lend-Lease helped the Soviet Union beyond the point of, to help them out?
Can you say that again? Do I think what could have helped the Soviet Union?
No. Did you think Lend-Lease, Lend-Lease helped out the Soviet Union? You know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes, Lend-Lease, yes. Yeah, of course it helped. It was. Oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was not all, Marxists or Leninists. I was arguing with one said Lend-Lease did not help the Soviet Union out. And I said, yes, they did because Lend-Lease, helped save the Soviet Union from all the blanket supplies and military aid.
Right. I don't know if it saved the Soviet Union. It was absolutely helpful, and it was part of the united struggle against fascism that you can't discount. But it was a small part of their war material, like single digit percentages. I forget the actual percentage offhand. Can you look that up, Daniel?
I remember there was. Trying to remember. There was like 2.3 or I'm trying to remember all numbers. 2.7 million tons of food. There was about ammunition. I don't remember how much ammunition. They didn't count that. There was about. I have it.
No, wrong percentage, Daniel. I'm looking for how much of the Soviet production Lend-Lease accounted for because it was very small. But yeah, I'm not saying it was it was unimportant. It was important. And the Soviets, by the way, Lend-Lease wasn't a gift from an ally. Lend-Lease was a loan, and the Soviets were after the war were paying it back. And as the Bretton Woods discussions sort of soured, and the U.S. was trying to keep Molotov, who was there at the talks, out of specific talks, they were trying to sort of refinance the loan, and the Soviets weren't going to do it. And that's part of what caused the negotiations in Bretton Woods to break down, and the Soviet Union to not end up being part of the IMF and World Bank, because originally they were going to, and there's going to be a sort of ruble zone and a dollar zone in the world, but the U.S. did not want. Jason here is helping us out. He says he believes that Lend-Lease was worked out to 5% of Soviet production. So to get back to the point, because I rambled at you and I apologize. Yes, it was important and they were necessary goods, but it was only 5% of the entire productive apparatus that was arming, feeding, and supplying the Red Army.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember the war machines. I don't know what the war machines. How do I forget the name of it?
Tanks?
No, not that. 1943, I think, dinner table. I'm trying to remember the quote. Don't give me some time. My brain is firing all neurons.
I have the same. I have the same problem, brother.
My brain is firing all neurons. Trying to remember, what does it say? I remember some parts. I'm just trying to remember the fill in the blank parts.
Yeah, no, I have the same problem. It's all right. Don't even worry about it. We're like already over time. So, was that it? You just wanted to talk about Lend-Lease or what?
I got one more question.
You cut out for a second. What did you say?
I got one more question. Do you think if someone supports someone that you don't like, right, but they have specific reasons, but one side of a specific group calls one side a traitor when they just support people that they just feel like supporting.
I think that that works, Daniel. That's fine. I think it always is going to depend on the context, right? Because think about it this way. People who were supporters of Trotsky, right, when Trotsky went anti-communist, were traitors. They weren't just traitors to the Soviet Union, but the entire world communist movement, right? So with regards to Trotsky, if someone was saying, I support Trotsky, they would have to be an enemy. But if it's something less significant, it might be a different story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to make. Don't worry. I know what you're trying to say. I know you and me both have the same problem. We're all firing all neurons and all, for sure.
No problem, brother. Well, these were great discussions. Feel free to call back again. We got to keep moving.
Yep, I understand. I gotta wake up at the radio.
Because we have a super secret special guest who just popped in on me. What's up, John?
What's up, man? I thought you might need a little company this evening.
Absolutely. Welcome. I was actually going to wrap up soon, but you're here now, so let's hang out.
Hey, no pressure to stay on long. I just had 30 minutes that opened up, but I wanted to come by and see what's up. What are you guys talking about today? What's been some of the themes?
That last guy wanted to talk about Lend-Lease. I don't know. It could have been a guy that wanted to like sort of debate that it was good, who was maybe taken off his game by the fact that I said, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, the Soviets wouldn't have won without the Lend-Lease. That was the X factor that drove the Allies to victory, not the 27 million lives that the Soviets sacrificed.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that may be like the narrative he would have gone with, but like he asked me if I thought Lend-Lease was important. And so I'm like, well, yeah, of course. It just, wasn't the most important thing. We've been all over the place, though. We talked about Syria. Talked about.
I'm curious to get your thoughts about. There's so much that's happened this week between. I know that the CEO shooting has taken up a lot of the air. It seems like online today, at least in the United States. Syria, though, I think is just massive. It's a huge blow to the resistance.
Oh, dude, I've been all over Syria lately, and it's been like sort of occupying. Because here's the thing. I'll be real with you. Syria, honestly, was sort of a weak point in my knowledge. Right? I didn't ever, I never had time to learn as much as I should about it. And so as things were sort of heating up, I began learning more and more. And over the weekend and the last week, I've literally done nothing but serious stuff. And
that's great, man.
I've been on RT and news shows like talking about it. It's like everything is Syria to the point where like I forgot this CEO shooter was even a thing for a while. Daniel reminded me while we were talking before the show.
In my mind, it like pales in comparison in terms of overall significance. I tried initially just to kind of stay out of the discourse, but when it came to the CEO shooter, because it's like, oh, this is just another spectacle to get everybody revved up, and it's so personal, for people when there's like an individual shooting like this and a healthcare CEO, people just really kind of personalize it. And so I was just like, okay, like let's talk about the fact that this massive historical nation just collapsed like in the span of 24 hours. I think that's much more significant. But yeah, man, Syria is complicated. It's like there are a ton of different forces in that region. It has a long and complicated history. Well, and even like among the different powers, like it's very complicated, like Turkey's role in all of this.
Let me ask you something about Turkey, right? What do you think this is going to do? Because Turkey was trying to sort of walk a line between the West and Russia. What do you think this is going to do in regards to Russia and its political relations there? Right after that, we're going to get to another call. So if you want to hop on the Discord and take the call with me, you're welcome to.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Daniel, put him in the live when he goes in the go in the waiting room and Daniel like slide you into live.
Gotcha. All right.
But yeah. What do you think is gonna happen between them and Russia now?
Well, it's like you said, it's very complicated. Erdogan is notoriously hard to read. He gave a speech a couple of days ago where he talked about the significant, like Turkey's role in the multipolar world and how it was almost echoing some of Putin's language. Like, we can't just be subject to Western imperialism in this unipolar world order where the United States and Europe have basically dictated the international institutions and the international norms. But then, you know, he's still so aligned. I mean, they're part of NATO, right? So there's that. And then Turkey also has extremely close relations with a lot of the Gulf states. Yep. So if you kind of look at this constellation of powers that Turkey has allied themselves with, they're definitely like a very flimsy ally for these other more independent nations who are trying to assert their sovereignty, whether we're talking about Russia, whether we're talking about China, and so on. And I think that they have a lot, you know, Turkey, I think, is always looking out for their own self-interest. And I see that Turkey is trying to kind of bring about the resurgence of this like Turkish Ottoman Empire. And to those ends, I think it really serves Turkey to create a level of instability, especially in the Caucasus region.
Definitely. They're already creating instability there too, aren't they? I mean, look what's happening in Romania and Georgia. Well, Romania is kind of a little, you know what I mean, though. In Georgia,
and Armenia and Azerbaijan and Georgia. Yeah, I think that they benefit quite a bit from a level of instability in the Caucasus region, so that they, you know, actually become a power that can challenge Russia's influence in that region. And then, of course, when it comes to Syria, we're already seeing how the Turks have they played a role in facilitating all this extremism that's been pouring into Syria, and then are already trying to take advantage along their northern border for the power vacuum that the Syrian National Army has left with their collapse. So, yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I think that there's a lot of angles that we could talk about Syria from. But to me, it emphasizes, and I know that Eddie's talked a lot about this today, and I'm really glad to see it. But it's like it was clear that there was some deal that was done with the Assad government. The army just it collapsed literally in a span of 8 hours. I mean, technically it was like 6 days that all of this took place, but it was really in the last 24 hours that everything fell apart. You know, you saw the Russian forces really stop their bombing campaigns, which had been, I mean, the Russian Air Force was a huge asset to Assad during his time in power to maintain some stability and take care of some of these terrorists and jihadists that have been occupying the eastern part of Syria. But when all that collapsed, it was very clear that Assad also did not do his due diligence in building class power within the country, right? And actually building a militant base that was going to be willing to fight and die for him. And I think that was really the lesson that we need to draw from this is like anti-imperialism, nominal anti-imperialism is great. It's great to be a figurehead that says, I'm not going to bow and capitulate to the West. But if that's not coupled with power, with actually building power among your working masses, among your peasants and your farmers, then what you're going to get is a bunch of jihadists that can roll you in the span of 48 hours. And that's exactly what we saw.
It's funny, like I literally was just saying that like at the beginning of the show tonight. Actually, our next caller wanted to talk about Syria anyway, so let's bring him on, Daniel.
Let's do it.
Hey, Timu.
Timu, what's up? What do you got for us? You're talking to not just me, by the way. John Malera from DD Geopolitics is with us.
How's it going?
What's going on? It's going good. I'm relatively new to this network, so thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What's up? What do you got for us?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this whole Syria thing. Like, And let me be honest, like I don't know how good of or bad of a leader Assad was, but it's like the way people are like cheering on Al Qaeda and Israel taking over the country, like I still don't get like how can people choose that over anything else? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a great question. It's like you see a lot of people with these. I mean, there's like some notable Palestinian influencers who are talking about how bad and corrupt Assad was. He was such a dictator, this and that. But they really didn't understand the level to which there was a lot of respect for minority populations under the Assad government. And I mean, now we're seeing like what we've been like Noah and I and many others have been saying all along is like Assad is a bulwark against not only the United States but also Israel, and then Syria, having a unified Syria under Assad, or at least somewhat unified. The United States has been occupying a third of Syria for the last decade, but having this corridor between Iraq that basically went from Iran, Iraq, Syria, and into Lebanon was critical for getting material, weapons, logistical support to the Palestinian resistance. And now that has crumbled away, and Syria is beginning to expand its occupation of the Golan Heights, and Israel's beginning to expand its occupation of the Golan Heights and go in to southern Syria, then that is shattered. And you're going to see, we're already seeing this, like the withering away of the capacity of groups like Hezbollah to actually fight on behalf of the Palestinian resistance. And that northern border of so-called Israel-occupied Palestine, southern Lebanon, that was critical to diverting the Israeli forces, to sucking up a lot of their capacity to destroy the Palestinian state, to conduct these military raids in the West Bank, and just complete their genocide on Gaza. So now that Syria has fallen, it's like people don't understand how significant that was, and that is exactly why we were so adamant for so long to these people who claim to be pro-Palestine, that wanted Assad to fall. Assad falling is not a good thing. That means that Syria is thrown into chaos, where it's going to split into these little fiefdoms controlled by different Sunni warlords, and Israel is going to expand their presence in southern Syria. That's what it means. And it means that the Palestinian resistance is totally defanged. I don't want to be too much of a downer, but I think that's just the reality. Noah?
Yeah. I just want to add that a lot of the reason that people are cheering on these terrorists is because we're lied to about it. I mean, I hate to say it's that simple, because it works in a little bit of a complicated way. But literally, they started calling this Al-Jilani guy a rebel rather than an Al-Qaeda terrorist. And like, you've probably seen the memes of like the guys like wanted poster.
You're talking about the pronouns, right?
The pronouns? No, I don't. Is he a pronoun guy too? He might be.
Well,
but,
I think that CNN put his pronouns up or something.
No way.
I don't know if that was real. I did see that though, but
please tell me it was.
But here's the thing on that, man. It's like in the 1970s and 80s, when Osama bin Laden was like studying at university and then first coming into power, I think he left Saudi Arabia because he studied in Saudi Arabia, and then went to join the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. And he was trained and equipped by the United States. And they did this character rehabilitation for Osama bin Laden in that period too. They said, oh no, he's fighting on behalf of the Afghan people, and he's really just a rebel, and he's not going to treat, the minority groups and women that badly. And so they did this character rehabilitation that didn't last very long. It, lasted the span of, about a decade, until he founded Al Qaeda in 1988, and the Soviets ended up getting kicked out of Afghanistan. And, soon after that, he became public enemy number one. But this is the exact same thing. It's like this, like, and our elites are so privileged because the American mind, and just the Western mind in general, is so conditioned in this like short-term thinking, where they can just memory hole things that happened, like even a couple of years ago, as short as years ago. I mean, HTS, I mean, they've killed many civilians. Like, they've been known as a fairly radical group. But you saw this. I mean, I think that the United States and our intelligence agencies have been trying to craft this for the last several months to kind of rehabilitate their character, talking about how, okay, yeah, they're an offshoot of Al Qaeda, they're an offshoot of ISIS, they're an offshoot of Al Nusra Front, all terrible, but they're a little bit more progressive, you know. But how do you come out of those groups?
Yeah, I remember that.
You know?
Yeah, I remember that. But when you try to bring that up, people like try to say like, "Oh, Assad is the dictator. Oh, he killed 500,000 Syrians." They'll talk as if it was only his side that was doing the kill, that was doing the unaliving during that war.
Yeah, and that's sort of that's a literal like tactic they use, right? The ruling class uses is to only focus on the one side to exaggerate and distort what happened, and then always stay on the offensive, right? If you bring up the fact that he's this is Al Qaeda, right? That this is literally who Syria has been fighting all along. They will ignore what you say and simply attack Assad. Yeah, but isn't Assad bad? But isn't Assad bad? It's the same as they do everything, right? When you talk about Ukrainian Nazis, they'll talk about, but Putin's a dictator, but Putin invaded, right? I noticed that a lot of the sort of very surface level thinking that we're sort of led into rests on this inability to address anything but the script. It's like a sort of script is written for us, and if we go off, we get kicked out of the movie or play or whatever the hell we're doing, right?
Like, exactly. Like, and it's not even just about Syria. I often have this same debate with people when it comes to the Haiti situation too.
Oh yeah,
because you know, because the way I see it, Syria is about to become what Haiti currently is right now, with warlords running the place, terrorizing the people.
yeah.
Like because what people often say about Haiti is that oh, hey, Haitians are too backward, they're too unintelligent, they need to take accountability for how the state is. They completely want to absolve the West of all blame for what they have done to the country for the past 200 years.
Yep.
This is coming from Haitian diasporans. Just to mind you.
Oh, of course.
Just to mind you.
That brings up the sort of listen to Venezuelans script, where someone we need to listen to someone because of where they're from. What? Think about Americans. Think about your racist uncle. Does he understand America? You know what I mean? Like just because someone's from a place doesn't mean they know anything. It's like every anti-communist I've ever asked or talked to, what are you talking about? I know Cubans. They hate Cuba. It's like, all right, I know Americans who hate America. So what?
Yeah, man. I had the funniest conversation a little while back with this guy in Colorado who was born in Venezuela. And we were getting into politics, and I brought up, I was just curious. I'm like, so yeah, what do you think of like Chavez and that whole thing? Like, and he's like, oh, these communists, they're so terrible, they're so backwards. This guy didn't speak a lick of Spanish. Okay, he moved over here when he was like 8 years old, and his family is like extreme, wealthy, and when I pushed back, I'm like, okay, but they're doing all these things. They've been under Westerns, but he's like, no. Like, you need to listen to Venezuelans. I'm like, bro, you're whiter than me, number one. All right. So if you're gonna pull that card, like, we can talk about it. But yeah, it's just this kind of the way identity politics is weaponized. The diasporoids are great at doing that, but it totally discounts like the experience of the average working person living in those countries. Like, does the average working person have the have the wealth and the flexibility to go travel to Europe and travel to the United States and, bring their families there and so on and so on? It's like, no. And I don't want to paint the diaspora all as just like these rich, out of touch people, because some people have had to flee for multiple reasons, right? There are, like, we have had Syria, just like Venezuela, under a brutal sanctions regime where people can't get the basic necessities of life. People are confused. The situation's complicated. They have had bad experiences with government officials and so on. But it's like, we have to remind people that there's a context, that these things aren't just occurring within a vacuum, where all of the brutality, all the suffering can be attributed directly to that government that they had this visceral experience with. And then it's that all of this is happening in a context of geopolitics, which is dominated by the United States and our allies. And then you see just like you see how things just develop naturally when the United States leaves places alone. It's like Iraq right now. Like, finally, for the first time in 2 decades, they're being left alone for a few years. They're bringing in all this Chinese foreign investment. They're building up their infrastructure. They're conducting trade. Things are getting better, right? And it's and the same thing even with Afghanistan to an extent. As bad as the Taliban had been, and again, that was a product of the United States too. But it's like, even if you leave groups like that alone, naturally, like, the interests of the people begin to kind of emerge and take root, and the government becomes a reflection of that. And so, yeah, it's just like the United States. I mean, that's often at the core of it is U.S. intervention.
100%. And I want to just add one more thing. When people talk about, like, oh, I know a Cuban and he hates Cuba, right? Like, the narrative is set up to immediately blame communism. But we can actually look for the causes of problems. And if we look for why people had to flee Cuba in the 90s, it wasn't because of communism. It was precisely because of anti-communism. It was when the Soviet Union fell, right? And their only real trading partner that was able to get them energy and food and other necessities was gone. And so the US was able to blockade them. And it's blockaded them since, right? And so, of course, people fled. They were starving. What would you do? Look, I love my home as much as the next guy. I love my country, my neighborhood, everything. But if my family is starving, we will swim across Lake Erie and steal some shit from Canada in a heartbeat. I'm just saying, like, that's realistic. Like, people, that's why people leave. Also, they never think about the vast majority of people who stay there, right? Who like it there. You know, there's a
like people are trying. Oh, sorry, continue.
No, there's a really good. They do polls in Russia every few years about what people prefer, capitalism or socialism. Every single time, people prefer socialism. Like a majority of people. And nowadays, it's even young people starting to get interested in it, specifically because of the footing that Russia is forced into from the US. It's always this, like, sort of outside influence going around messing with everybody else.
Exactly. Like, people are trained to have this whole one and done attitude when it comes to communism. So if a communist country fails, it must be because of communism. But how comes? But when you bring up how so many capitalist countries fails, like Nigeria, which is where my family is originally from, they'll be like, oh, it's not because of capitalism. It's because they're in Africa. The government's corrupt. That's the only answer I get when it comes to why a capitalist country such as Nigeria would fail.
It's wild how much people can turn their brains off about this stuff. I swear. Like, when it's communism, oh, it's communism's fault. When it's capitalism, no, it's anything else. Anyway, thank you for your call, brother. We got one more to do tonight. Let's hop to that one. Who do we got next?
All right, have a good night. All right.
Hey guys, we got Rabbit. I think Rabbit, you're in the UK, right?
Yeah, I'm from the UK.
from the UK, but I can barely hear you. So hold on a. Oh, you're. Can you talk a little louder, brother?
I'm from the UK, and I've waited to just ask you one question.
Sure. What's up?
So first off, props to the other British caller. You have got an audience over here in Great Britain. You're much loved over here by a select few of us. Props to you, Noah, also Carlos, to Eddie, to Danny, and also to Haz, and also to Daniel, the admin. He's dope. And also, I've only just discovered now John Malera, bass guy. Just quick shout out to all you. My main bit was I'm kind of inspired by what you guys have produced with the Midwestern Marx Institute. Um, Congratulations. I think it's fantastic. Some of the collaborations you've had. My question, I'll get to it finally, is who do you think are kind of the main kind of people that would be the equivalent to the Midwestern Marx Institute in the UK, or prospective Midwestern Marx Institute equivalent of the UK? I'm interested to hear that, your thoughts on UK folks, what you think of us Brits, and who's all right. That's what I want to know.
Good questions. I'll let John answer mostly. And Daniel, by the way, come on if you can remember who we were sending our people to there. I forget exactly the name of them, but there was like a crew of guys from Infrared that were doing something, and I forget what the name of it was. But look, we're big fans of the Workers' Party there. We work closely with a few of the people on the Galloway campaign. We love the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninists. Jody Brar is a very fierce fighter for the working class. I can't believe I just used the word fierce. What am I? Ugh. Fierce? I feel like that's like a word cheerleaders use. But she's great.
It's so demure, Noah.
Well, if I'm one thing, it's demure. But yeah, we like Alex at Marxism Leninism. Marx Engels Lenin Institute is great. Who else? Who else are you thinking of, John?
You pretty much covered everybody that I was going to say. So I don't know if I have much to add. You know, I like to. There's always interesting spaces and podcasts that I go on with guys who aren't necessarily like Marxist Leninists, but kind of present this anti-imperialist or anti kind of hegemonic politics. But you know, Noah really covered the main ones, so I don't want to just take up a bunch of air.
Daniel's trying to get that info for me, but I don't know if we have enough time to wait for responses. I'm assuming he's texting someone, and we'd have to wait for them to respond. So I apologize about that, but I hope that's enough to get you started.
No, I'm started thoroughly. I just wanted to hear your opinions. I mean, a quick anecdote, if I may.
Sure.
I was earlier this year in the summertime, and I'll be going next year. I want to advertise it to your viewers. We have a tradition in the UK here called the Tall Puddle Martyrs Festival. I don't know if you heard about the Tall Puddle Martyrs. They were the first trade union movement. Look it up. There's a festival every year, Tall Puddle Martyrs Festival. We celebrate the birth of the trade union movement. It's a great thing to get yourself down to if you're in England in the summertime, and that's it. Just love what you guys do. Just wanted to hear your takes. Respect to the Workers' Party of Britain. also to those guys, and also Jyoti Bra and all the communists and everybody. One love. Thank you for the opportunity to just ask you that question.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great call to end it all on. Tell you what, John, why don't you take us away and just have the last word? Say whatever you want, brother.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be on your show, Noah. It's a great time speaking with you. There's a lot going on across the world. I think we need a little bit of revolutionary optimism right now, tapping into the spirit of the great Che. We have to continue to fight this fight regardless of the forces that stand against us. We're going to have losses, and I think that what we saw in Palestine, what we saw in Syria, it's been a loss. Let's just call a spade a spade. But at the same time, there's extremely encouraging developments that are taking place all over the world. I think people are rediscovering the immortal science of Marxism-Leninism. We have a lot of people in this country who are becoming aware for the first time in many generations of U.S. imperialism's role in the world. They're also being motivated by their own economic conditions, which are immiserating them and their families and encouraging people to look more toward revolutionary politics. But it's important for us to remember that as we are experiencing these changes, both on a global scale and here in the United States, that we don't get consumed with this notion of anarchic, radical individualism, right? This is very kind of, it's easy to get gripped by this because we do feel so alienated in our present culture, right? We feel so disconnected from the things that make us human. And the frustration and the anger that we're seeing across the country it's extremely real. But this battle, which is an existential battle, not only for the working class in the United States, but for the working class globally, and I believe for the majority of all of mankind, is not a battle that's going to be won by one individual. It's not going to be a battle that's won by one vigilante. It's going to be a battle that requires us building class power. And it's going to be about using the class power of the working class to take down the capitalist class, just as the capitalist class took down the feudal systems that came before them. And so, in that spirit, I think that let's keep on let's keep moving forward with our good works. Noah, I'm extremely excited this week to participate in some stuff with you. We have some exciting stuff coming up this weekend that I'm really excited to share. We won't share any details yet, but comrades, it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother. And stick around after the show. We'll hang out. I just want to say, if you're not fighting yet, get in the fight. If you are fighting, never stop. See everybody next week.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations, we've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The let's come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come